watch it, make sure it comes on.
Great.
Yeah, Gareth, dude.
Hey, Tom.
I mean, I met you last summer. Was it last summer?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
either
it would have been. Yeah.
it was either the tail end of the summer, which was very hot, very blistering summer, and then you sent me an email, and when I put out the word to say, hey, who wants to do a show, and I didn't know who you were. And the only picture you have on social media is you playing the bass, so you can't see your
Yeah.
face. But yeah, that was a very important time. I think it was a
Very.
very important time,
Yeah.
and I can appreciate that. And for me, it's like everything that is presented to me as a, like, say, a memory or a past life or a situation in this incarnation where you start to get a greater awareness of what was really going on outside of your emotions and the other person's emotions, etc. But like, the intelligence is moving so quickly that even today, like last night, I went through 14 hours, dude, straight, 14 straight, sleeping. And I break out like
Wow.
around my third eye, and sometimes it expands a little bit. This went all the way up my scalp, all the way down to my cheeks, to my beard and my mustache. And so
Wow.
I was like, what? So I just threw myself into my work. I did like, 3 or 4 hours of work. And then I went for a walk in the town. I thought, oh my God, I feel like I'm, you know, and all this information's coming in. And then I thought to myself, oh shit, I'm doing a show with Gareth. And I went, okay,
All right.
it's all connected. And then my body, and I have to say this because you're going to do 97% of the talking, and that's the way it should be, because I want to hear everything you have to say, bro. But my body came on and located this space beneath anything I've been in the lower spine, in the physical body, so I guess you could say in the lower chakras, to a point that felt so sensitive and so powerful at the same time. And I know it's masculine. For myself, anyway. I'm not trying to convince you or anybody else, but so I
Mhm.
recognize the power of this episode, and I really feel like it's the highest potential of anything I've ever done online. So thank
Wow.
you for showing up, brother. There's so much to talk about. You went into the ICU for 3 days. It's a crazy thing. Katie Kiss, bless you, Katie Kiss. Shout out, Katie Kiss, and your raw authenticity. I love the chemistry, the wild chemistry that y'all have every week, and they'll be back next week at this time. But
Katie is the best.
Katie's Katie, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like something's going down today, and and I feel like that what happened, because I didn't know what happened, and for some reason that early week of the solstice, I don't know what day it was on, but it was like, there's a couple of shows, 3 shows we've been doing every week for months, and I was told stop. So the next week it's coming up, and you're about to come on, even though you've had some seizures. And then I said, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. Like, I need to be in silence and isolation. And so the next thing I know is I get a message from Katie on my text. And it said, Gareth has been having consecutive grand mal seizures, and they've induced a coma to stop them. And as soon as I
Mhm.
got it, this is what happened. I knew you were about to go through 3 days, because I had been told for myself after the solstice, you're going to go through 3 days of darkness. And it was like pure masculine, right? And so when I heard that in my multidimensional, as all of us are coming into a wider space of multidimensional consciousness, I was able to kind of like take that on. And I told her, I wrote to her, I said, hey, don't worry about it. He's going to go through these 3 days. He's doing the work, and it's going to be all right, right? And And so that's what happened. And then I heard basically the days were pretty much aligned. Not that they have to be, but
Yeah.
something huge happened at the, even I know it's a Gregorian calendar. I know that's bullshit, but what's not? What
Well,
calendar?
yes,
What
exactly.
calendar before it was the one that said it was the all end all cure all, right? But my point is that yeah, there is something to the story that we're writing, and your story for me. What I really find intriguing and I admire is the fact that we're writing a story. We're writing it. It's not
Yeah.
subjected or secondary to some narrative, and even that part of the universe which has revealed itself to each and every one of us, Tom, God, Mother Goddess, whatever you want to call it, never ask you to give up your sovereignty. And so that's what I love about
Right.
your story, brother. Wherever you want to start, thank you so much. I'll talk at the end. You can keep going from here, and
Sure.
maybe I'll plug in a question here and there. Thank you for showing up, bro,
Sure.
in all respects.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the forum too, Todd. Really great timing and yeah, awesome. And I think Katie's keeping an eye on the chat too, because I think some people had some questions about particularly like the Sphinx and this compression wave or energy wave I saw and kind of how it all links up. So but yeah, I mean it was a massive time. And the thing there's so many elements of my life that are all starting to connect up now. That tells me a lot about where we're at, a huge amount. And so the coma was about 3.5 days, and I went into, I started having grand mal seizures, like I said, so they couldn't shut them down. Like the anti seizure meds they use, which are injections, I believe, weren't working. So they put me into an induced coma just to shut the brain activity down enough. And that was all part of it. One of the things the Arcturians told me back in about 2018, I believe it was they came in randomly. I think I was even walking down a street, and it was really powerful. And they really wanted me to remember this. They said all the lines of connection connecting them to you also connect you to them being those of the interference. So all of these strategies, particularly mind control, frequency weapons, biological warfare, you name it, history, time, everything they've used to kind of keep us in a holding pattern. They're lines of connection that connect their beingness with ours, and that's all come to a head. And so the period, last 2 year period, I believe 2.5 year period, the Palladians called it the frequency wars. So that implies that they have frequency weapons. But well, what's the weapon that's coming back at them? Well, that's us. And the transition wave that's been playing out on the planet and what the human race was put together to receive in the first place and take on and project out. As our frequency is going up, they're having to go to town to keep us shut down. And that's been the name of the game the entire time. One of the things Tom God told me back in 97 was that he described their intention. He said, well, what are they doing all this for? He said, they're looking for a way to make the transition with you, which is this period in history we're going through now. It was always going to happen. And they were trying to figure out a way, keep us in a holding pattern, which Tom called the bottlenecking of souls, which is this karmic thing, the mind control. It keeps us stuck in polarity, which is conflict. So we keep on throwing stones and arrows and bullets at each other, thinking the other person's the problem, when really there's this third party called those of the interference that have always stayed hidden in the background behind the control system they've put together. Now, that control system fundamentally is centralization of power, and a big problem with that, and this is the problem they've got, is if you lose control of the system, you're cornered by it. You're in the center. So that's what's been playing out, and that's what's happened. So now all these lines of connection, everything they're throwing at us, because the rate of waking up is happening exponentially, everything they've been throwing at us, think of it like whack-a-mole. is actually connecting us more and more directly. That fifth dimensional, full open, 100% genetic Nazarene. The Nazarene is the truth of who we are, to them directly. So they're having to speed up to keep up with us, and of course that's blowing their cover. So there's this whole domino effect playing out, this massive big domino effect playing out. I think what's been a big problem for a lot of us who have been on the kind of waking up for quite a number of years, even decades side of the fence, is seeing how it's possible that Joe Average is going to do the same thing when they're so polarized and anti. And but the element in what's playing out that does that, as I've been saying, is the COVID narrative collapsing. Because what needs to be seen by everybody is that your belief system has been the core the control over the flow of information, creating a belief system that steers us in the direction they want us to go in, rather than the direction we want us to go in, which we think we're creating civilization. Really, we've been creating this inversion of civilization. Well, that's all flipped on its head. So what happened when I went into the coma, as I came out of the coma, Tom was there massively, like filling the room. And so were the Arcturians standing behind. They were standing behind me, but Tom was in front of me everywhere. It was exactly the way it was in 97 when I was speaking to him directly in 5D. And he took me through this process. At the time, I could see it all really clearly because I was in full 5D. So repeating it now it's a lot harder to put into words. At the time, if I could have plugged you into my brain, I could have transferred it. But anyway, what he took me through was this couple of elements, and one of them, the first one, was the man who wanted to say every word. But so there was this sequence of words that I had to go through. The reason that I had to do that was because the man who wanted to say every word, the masculine principle who wanted to know everything, it wasn't based on direct experience. It was all based on mental structure, belief system. So what I've been doing my entire life, and what all of us have been doing, is having a direct experience, being moved through a process of getting deprogrammed and put back together, basically pulled apart and put back together so that I can receive what's playing out. And that's what's happening for all of us. It's like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, they start with the answer to life, the universe, and everything, which is 42, but they don't understand it. They have to go through an entire process to get everything rearranged in their brain so they can understand why that's the answer. That's fundamentally what we've been going through. So this process of saying all these words was grounding them in direct experience and flipping the inversion around. Then he took me through the riddle of the Sphinx, which was a process of describing or reciting something that was actually really, really old, very ancient, which I didn't even know I had a connection to, not in this way anyway. And it culminated with naming the Sphinx. But the last part of it, the last maybe 5 words, only showed themselves. I thought I'd finished, and he was pulling me forward, saying, keep going, keep going. And I would get that there was another word as I needed to. And in that last section, because I'm in ICU, there are machines, everywhere. It's like beep, beep, everything. There's like so many lights in front of me, and they were all like strip lights on these different machines that were red. And as I got through the last maybe 5 words, they started flipping green. Each time I said one, click, a group of these lights would go green. And then I got to the last one, which I knew was the name of the Sphinx. And I said it, and all the lights went on simultaneously green. Click. And then the next thing I saw was this massive wave of energy that popped basically out of the Sphinx, the Giza Plateau, and just went right around the planet. I saw it in front of me, like it was vertical. And it was like the way martial arts works, where all the energy that those of the interference have been putting into this inversion process for the last 12,000 years coalesced into a frequency, and then it went flip back the other way and out that way. Then my mind was taken up just above the Giza Plateau, and I saw it come up out of the Sphinx and then ride like a disc all the way around the planet and then back again, and it's just kept going ever since. And one of the things Tom told me years ago, he said, "We are reversing the inversion with you." So that final point just happened and it was New Year's Eve that I came to. So timing, man, it's unbelievable. It's always blown me away. So New Year's Eve, I went through this process, and then hit midnight, flip New Year's Day, and there it goes, this energy wave. And one thing I know is that the Sphinx was actually originally built for Tom, for God, and somewhere around 56,000 years ago. And then the first civilization, the Nazarene, built from the ground up as the hawk, that all came together. When my partner and I were married, we had to go on this trip around the world. It just sort of formed up out of nowhere. So we had to go to these key points around the world. One of them was New York, just before 9/11. We also had to go into parts of Canada, London, UK, then the Sinai Desert, and then we went to Egypt, and that whole kind of culminated in standing in front of the Sphinx, and an energy wave passed through us. Like we both just went, wow. We knew whatever the secret of that Giza plateau was, it was all centered around the Sphinx. So all of these threads, these lines, threads that have been playing out throughout my life have all started to come together. And I think over the next 12 months, it's just going to get clearer and clearer and clearer. And the breakdown of the controlled narrative is going to get more and more obvious. I also know that the financial system is going to go through a massive transformation. A lot of the direct energy technology that's been suppressed is going to start coming in. That's very important because direct energy completely destroys centralization of financial system, which is slavery. It's illegal throughout all galactic federations because it's a system of slavery. You can't have money. So we'll go through a process where it'll come into gold. It'll be phased out. But the first thing is to devalue it centrally with decentralization of power. Remember, the whole system is based on centralization of power. So every aspect of what that word means, the core of it is on a physical sense. What runs a civilization is direct energy, not indirect. We don't have to go through them to power everything. It's direct. It's everywhere. The universe is energy. Same thing with spirituality. You don't go. He told me the time for religion is over. So instead of going through them to connect with your source, you go direct. It's all about direct, going direct. So that's all rolling out now. There's a whole sequence of it. You can see it playing out geopolitically, what's playing out in the Middle East. Israel is critical. The Hebrew are very, very, very important. The reality of the Hebrew is extremely important. Just like we're a microcosm of the galaxy, they're a microcosm of the human race. That's why those of the interference infiltrated them first. So they're not Hebrew. There's this end times death cult at the extreme end of Zionism. They aren't Jewish. They aren't Hebrew. They're the ones running all of this. They run the media through Mossad. That's all going to be brought out. They run child trafficking. Basically, it's a satanic cult. So when he said to me the time for religion is over, that's really what he was talking about. So the extension of religion, just like they use the media to project this image of the way life is, political system, financial system. Underneath it all is an inversion of life. It's slavery, pure and simple. Same thing with spirituality. So that's all being hit really hard on every level. The Galactic Federation, there's been this integration process going on for a long time now of open contact between humanity and the Federation of Worlds in this galaxy. They basically, all of our genetic material and the ecosystem came from a program called the Grand Experiment, which was put together by this federation under the supervision of the Nazarene as the hawk. So the human race was put together through this as a strategy to corner this group and finish them off. That's a very, very big thing. It's not a small thing that's happening here. But I'll just finish on this. The thing about it is what God said to me, the manner of transition, which is what's playing out, the manner of transition of humanity has never been done before in the history of the universe. So this whole strategy has never been done before. So what's actually playing out, we are really directly experiencing it in real time. We're putting it together in real time. It's all coming together in real time. And there are a lot of people around the world who have been pulling together and grounding that into the fabric of our physical reality so that it can be spread out around the human race. And that's precisely what's happening. The Nazarene played a massive role, and I can go into all of that. That's the trap that the human race is. They called the strategy. This is the Arcturians and our ET guides. They called it shoot for the moon, life's best hand, which is a strategy. And when we first looked it up, it was a strategy in a card game trumps. So the reality of what Trump, who he is, what he's connected to, what he represents, is going to show itself. Basically, whatever the
Hell
media says.
yes, I'm not political, but I'm saying, dude, you're talking the truth. Keep going.
Yeah, sure. It's always about stepping back and being objective and letting the truth show itself to you. That's tough because we've been programmed to be afraid of the unknown and doubt ourselves. So that leaves a gap between the question and the answer where all of your freaking out comes in. So the desire to fill it with a framework that you can pull back into and go, oh, that's great, now I'm safe. That's really all your family and friends and the people on the no, there's nothing happening side of the fence have been doing. But like I said, the breakdown of the controlled narrative around COVID is going to destroy their ability to do that, and they won't be able to count on any opinion they've got about anything. Yeah. So now all of those conspiracy theories become threads that pull apart the fabric of the whole matrix for everyone around the planet. And
let me interject one quick comment and keep going. I just got to say these two things for anyone that's, because this is moving fast, right? No, I say that with the highest reverence. I mean, keep going, because it is all a frequency. We don't have to keep up with it in words. And I would imagine a lot of people are like me going, oh my God, this is pure. It's real time. But one of the things you're saying, there's two things that really stand out. One is that regardless of the dynamics, all the fuckery is coming to the surface. And if you do tap in, not for the point of losing your focus or being overpowered or losing control, but just to see what's happening in that reflection outside of us, you can see it. All the bullshit, the shadow banning, the gaslighting's not working. It's like you have to be so, okay, so that's one. The most important one to me of the two things is that really what you described early on in what you were saying is that ultimately, in my own words, being aware of the atmosphere, of what's being presented, of what's going on, and handling that within yourself, removing those things within yourself is what this, maybe in tandem with Tom, with whatever, okay, we want to call this thing bigger than all of us. It's too powerful for this stuff, and that's what you're saying, for this stuff to withstand and hide behind these veils. And it's so funny because before we went live, I was telling you what happened with me on Facebook and YouTube. And I was telling you, I can see the infrastructure of the false matrix breaking down in real time in the physicality. Exactly. The way that I was, experiencing it. So yeah, keep going, man. Yeah, this all kind of came to a climax or a crescendo in this 3 days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. That's right. So it's like like I said, martial arts. All that energy was flipped back around to them. So now everything they've done and everything they're doing is coming back through their system, pointing to the central control group that's never been seen before. And you're right. I mean, the key thing with all of this, when God, I use the name Tom simply because that's the way it was put to me. Tom, spokesman for the Council of Nine. So God isn't a man or a woman, but when you speak through the masculine principle. Women do it, men do it. So that's really all he's saying. And T, like I've said before, is simply a model for the way the universe is created. When he said we are reversing the inversion with you, think about, and this is true of everything that comes from source. It's multidimensional. We are reversing the inversion with you, together with you of the world, and we are reversing the inversion with your sense of who you are. Now that part is the core for everyone. We aren't who we think we are, and we aren't where we think we are. And that reality, the question has to be there in order to receive. So what's been playing out, he said about this process, it's better for you if you choose it. And the Arcturians described what's just kicked in. They called it the great coming together and the great falling apart. So as soon as this compression wave was released, after that name of the Sphinx was said, the Arcturians stood behind me and repeated that phrase. Now it's now become physical. They said, it's all the work has been done. Now the physical structure will conform. So everything around the world that isn't of that reality, that true frequency, that which is one frequency, the whole universe emanates from a single core frequency. And he called them those of the interference because it's like static, an anti-frequency, an attempt to jam the signal. So everything that came from that is going to be shut down and shown up. Darkness in physics is simply an absence of light. So it's just the only reason any of this has worked is because we weren't aware of it. As soon as you become aware of it, you see through it. And the way Ramana Maharshi put it, he's described as true north in terms of this way of coming back to ourselves, true north, the path of self-inquiry. The way he put it is when you know your own mind, you know all minds. So what's coming through this next process, the level of compassion and understanding that we'll all have for each other, finally, the Palladian said you will finally be able to see and hear each other because we've all been played. The impact on us has all been the same. There's no problem all you're seeing is symptoms of the same problem. And once we see what the impact has been, the reality of what's happened, the impact it's had on us, how much of our actions and words have been coming from this false perspective, this false persona, and the damage that's done to other people simply because it wasn't us talking, it wasn't them we were talking to, vice versa. There's no one that's innocent or guilty. It's simply a universal problem that we've all been sold a lie and we all bought it. And that's the only reason it worked. And that releases the whole thing big time. And it's going to play out over the next couple of years. Anyone who's refused to go there is going to have to, because this is why Tom said it's better for you if you choose it. And the Arcturians described it as the great coming together and the great falling apart. Everyone who didn't want to go there, their whole sense of reality is going to collapse. So they're going to have to go there anyway. And COVID does it. If they lied about that, what else have they lied about? And there's nothing they can put outside that question. Zero. That's going to force them to actually receive the reality that they've been living a lie, go through a whole process, and then come out the other side. So there's a time differential in some ways. This is the split earth thing. It's not very well understood. When you've done all the work and you're going through the great coming together, your sense of time is going to be different to theirs. But if you like, the gap between what's happening now and the moment where it all comes together is precisely the same. It's just the experience we have of it that's different in reality. The way God put it, we do not have the time set by men. So the left brain out of balance, the masculine principle out of balance. It makes time linear. It's one of those are the interference big strategies. They removed the 13th month because that's feminine. They changed the way music is, the frequency music operates at, the calendar, lots and lots of ways. They've messed with our perspective of time to shut us into a box.
So what
So
you're
so that's
saying, so what you're saying is, real quick, that the same level of manipulation, suppression, whatever, with our feminine occurred with the masculine.
Well, this is how you shut. If you want to shut down a civilization, you go after the sacred masculine. You shut down the belief system. You shut down the ability for the civilization to hold systems that actually allow the emotional body to be fully open. That's critical because it's the emotional body that's the receiver. The divine feminine is the receiver. That's you emanate from the fifth dimension into physical form through the feminine into masculine. Masculine is secondary. All life in the universe begins female in gestation, and at a certain point, there'll be a mutation that happens where the masculine. So, this illusion of separation that light is created from, that's the masculine principle. The way it's put is that's that core frequency is like a sound wave. Let there be light. So that's the secondary effect that allows the physical universe to exist. But what it's really holding is consciousness, which you can't define, and that's feminine. So that's what's happened. So now our belief system, the masculine principle, is being put back into right alignment with the divine feminine. So when Tom said we are reversing the inversion with you, what self-doubt and fear does is it puts the ego in front of the heart. So you edit out your intuition. There's all sorts of stuff they've rammed into us to stop us from wanting to go there. That you're an idiot, particularly men. You can't. You've got to be able to logic everything out. If you can't come up with the answer for why you should act in a certain direction, then you're an idiot for going that way. You've got to know everything first, then you act. Life doesn't work that way. It's the opposite, actually. But you look like an idiot. And one of the things God said to me is sometimes wisdom looks like foolishness, and foolishness looks like wisdom.
Blessings are burdens and blessings are burdens and burdens and burdens are blessings. Let me go back to what you were saying. God, I mean, the reality is, I'm going to put it in my own terms. And I got this from you. All right. This is how it works, right? You get the hit, you remix it comes out, right? It's both of you, right? It's a third energy. What you're speaking of speaks to the level, to the depth of, let's just call it the technology. This isn't like mass mind control. There's that aspect. There's, subliminal advertising, et cetera, GMOs, whatever. Let's look at all metaphorically and energetically, fluoride and all that, right? This goes deeper. This literally goes into the body. It goes into our mind, our brain. Let's make a differentiation maybe. I don't know. But my point is, this is a level of contention that we have come into unconsciously facing. And now we're becoming aware. And to your point, once you become aware, which is what you were talking about at the very beginning, it's like once you become aware of the program and the depth that it is, you're able to start to neutralize and transform. But the tough part is even those things most sacred to us, even those belief systems that we have discovered through these higher epiphanies and revelations, those have to be questioned too. Because like you said, they all come back to the same place that you're talking about. And that is, I think, the level that we've gotten at. When I say we, I'm not trying to differentiate any soul from another, because I don't know if we're all beating at the same vibration. We just can't see it. But I do know from my personal experience and people that I've been around, the work that I do, that this is a level we've gotten to. And it probably didn't come in till a week ago or 2 weeks ago. It's that new. And it's that profound, and we're just starting to talk about it. So thank you, for bringing this in on the new year, because it is an inside game, and the whole thing was really a mind fuck, basically.
Exactly.
That's all it was. And I love what you said. Let me just say this last thing. I love this part where you went into about the compassion, because that's what it really comes down to. Because to me, that's, words are futile. But that is to me, the deepest word I can come up with when it comes to, that feminine aspect that birthed it all. I would say it that way. But when you said that, and that we all have arrived or coming into the level of awareness that we understand that we have all arrived to the same state of awareness and intelligence, which is that we've all been subjected to the same thing. It doesn't matter which stream of it you experience it on or the multiple streams that you did. It's all erased like an Etch-a-Sketch. It just,
Yeah.
and now here we
That's
are.
it.
And they really
That's
can't
it.
fuck with us. And we know they're part of us, but the universe can handle that shit. We're going to just keep going down this road. And it's profound. It's
Big
profound.
time, yeah. And there's a lot of help, and it's always been there. But one of the things the Arcturians told me years ago is we cannot do it for you. So we had to get to a certain point on our own, and they've been holding us in the background. And this is the way it works. They'll come in, all the people I think who have been connected or contacted by ETs directly or had experiences similar to mine will all tell you this. They'll come in and point your attention in a certain direction and then step back. They won't give you all the answers because it's all about developing the part of yourself that can see through the illusion. Because once you do, it can't hold you anymore. And one of the great things Ramana Maharshi said was the truth of who you are is untouched by any of it. So this getting to that point through the, let's say, the feeling of being a victim of something, all of the emotional energy that we've been carrying around, the anger and the pain and people are carrying some very intense versions of it to varying degrees, but they're all symptoms of the same problem. Ultimately, they're all symptoms of the same problem. And the solution is not to go around it, but to go through it and to be brought through the feeling. Suppression, I think, has been one of the things that spirituality, alternative particularly, has kind of kidded themselves that works. It's like, yes, it's true that being angry at someone else doesn't work or serve you. Yes, it's true that holding pain, holding on to things, it's all true. But what's the real solution to not doing that? You can't just flick a switch. It's not an act of will. What Ramana said is meet the feeling. Turn around and meet the feeling. And let the story be there and challenge the story instead of doubting the self, which just keeps the loop going. Now you're putting that doubt onto the stories you've already told yourself. Can I really know that's true? Some of them are sacred too. You need to feel that way because you've got a lot of pain. So you need to feel like you're a victim of something. But that just keeps you stuck in it. And what actually happens, and this is one of the fundamental tenets of mind control, they know that victims become perpetrators. So if you carry it desensitizes you and you feel justified in doing to the other what was done to you. But we don't see it that way.
Bingo.
So the solution is, yeah, exactly. And the solution to all this conflict around the world isn't to get rid of the opposite, but to turn around and look at the one who wants
it's
to.
in the self perception of what's occurred to you, quote unquote. So, like you
Yes.
said, I think that really sums it up: is that the victim becomes a perpetrator, and that's how it's perpetuated. I mean, Gareth, you're talking about stuff that, this is it. This is the gold. This is the liberation. This is the freedom, It
Well,
really
that's the
is.
thing.
And I can't convince you that I'm there, and you can't convince me that. That's the whole thing. It's like deep inside of us, yet as individual and solitary as it seems, I know I'm right there with you. How the fuck would I know when Katie sends me a text and says, this just happened to Gareth, he's had an induced coma in ICU, and immediately that part of the network that you're speaking of, and that's physicalizing as we, release these appendages and shed these skins, came in and said, and I typed it right out. Some people might call that channeling. I think that's our real self. When we start to, as we're embodying ourselves and being the soul that we are with each other in all moments, it lights something up that's way beyond the playground we've been on. Like, it doesn't matter if you had 20 years of this or 30 years of this. In a moment with another person or other people where you're actually exchanging this, because it's a mutual thing, like the Arcturians were telling you. It works both ways. So it's, I don't know what you call it. Is it is it the torus? Is it that middle part of the torus where everything's just, I don't know, but something's turning on very quickly. And
Big time. Well,
I think that I think last thing, I think what's the right word? I think the influence of the external, particularly the global stage, becomes less of a factor, and as a consciousness, it just dissipates. Is kind of how I see the trajectory. I don't know. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's the gospel, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's what happens. Like I said, darkness in physics is described as an absence of light. So this idea that there's something to be afraid of, we actually project that out into the world and create it unwittingly. And that's what they want. There is no darkness. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's no monster. But our own self-doubt and fear of the unknown projects form into that and makes it into something. That's not really how reality works and how the universe works. It's simply a holographic projection. So white light, time, actually the fourth dimension, creates this illusion of separation, which allows us to experience light and dark, which is simply the awareness of the present moment and then the awareness of movement through time, which brings the next moment and the next moment. So we can have this experience of experiencing the all that is in real time, which is the only reason self-aware life exists. God said, we created you and you created us, and for that we love you. There's another part to that, which is, do you love life unconditionally? So we've been taught to be conditional, love ourselves conditionally. Once you love yourself conditionally, you can't be right as you are, then everything else is brought into that form. As soon as you do that, you act in a way that's not in harmony with reality. That creates a bounce back, which has a series of, you go through a series of experiences, which is really saying there's a problem here. But we experience it like it's proof that we aren't right as we are. We get reactions from people. We get experiences that don't seem to come together, or that's how we read them. So we get this compound effect. But this sort of, the reason God used that word Tom is that letter T. So the fifth dimension is this point where the white light coming out of that infinite field of potential, which can't be described at all, 0 point in physics, absolute zero. That point where it meets the physical universe of white light is the fifth dimension. So there's this toroidal field that opens up. Once you get a handle on time and space being what they are, and you receive them, now your attention's back in the center of everything, which is everything shares the same point of origin, which is this fifth dimensional 0 point. Once you stop you needing to tell everything what it's got to be and what you need to be, now everything becomes a doorway to the next moment, and that's exactly what's happening. But for the human race, we have to pass through our sense that it's the exact opposite to know that it isn't. The way God put it to me is, you do not truly know a thing until you have lived it. So the human race is now going through a process of living the reality that we never had a problem. Getting tricked into thinking we had a problem was the problem.
Right.
But
That's why we're sick. That's why we're sick. It's not fluoride and all that stuff. Can I ask you a semi-personal question? Your information obviously is, I've told you, and I had an experience, and I didn't mention it on this podcast episode, but when you were in induced coma, my friend Franco De Nicola, we did 52 shows together, and that's a whole story. And he came to me the night that he transitioned, et cetera, that level. And when I first did shows with you, I recognized a similar frequency. And so when you were in the middle of this whole ICU thing, I actually had an experience, which was the third experience I've ever had, where there was an incarnated soul that appeared like a disincarnated soul, right? And it was Franco and you. And this whole transmission came in, and I wrote it down. I have it in my notes on my computer. And it was your words. It wasn't his. It was your words. It was funny. But what I wanted to ask you was, today I got up this morning and I started to put out some reels. Shout out to Infused Lights and Gregory Jones for doing that for us. and and he does them, and it's not like in order. They're just, all the different shows. So, well, one of the first ones, I think the first one that came up was about you, or was you. It was a clip from when you were on, and you were talking about twins. And I'm saying this in relation and respect to the overall thing and the components that might comprise that. And I know just from picking up things a little bit here, and I was, blessed with the opportunity of seeing your partner impromptu, which you were shocked by, which was really cool. But you can feel the energy, and I guess what I'm saying is, a lot of people will look at someone like you and go, "Wow, he's like, he's over here, and I've got a lot to learn and such." But I guess where I'm going with this is you and I, we're still in the human body and subjected to the human condition, and the what you just described, the depth that involves to bring us to the opposite side of potential and enlightenment and awareness. How
Yeah.
has it been for you to have this information come in and to work it out with yourself? Obviously, we all do that, but with someone else through these crazy transitional times of the last 12 or 15 years. And I've been there too, and I'm still there. Do you have to check yourself? Do you have to remind yourself of the things that you've been told? Has it been just a smooth flow or anything in between? I mean, I know you're very human because your human comes out in your transmissions that you have on the show every week. How did that go for you? What was your evolution like?
Oh, look, really, really intense, really fluid. Yeah, everything. I mean, it's been flat out. It's been very, very, very hard at times, and sometimes it's just this flow of events. And but I think that's, see, there's nothing different or unusual about me, and that was the whole point of the Nazarene. That's what the human race is. It's really just a strategy had to be set up to kind of um, keep this plan rolling from the Roman Empire onwards. That was always going to happen, though. The human race, remember, the whole human race was created as a trap for those of the interference. And so there are several dynamics involved in that. And one of them, God said, "You are the most physically dense race in the universe." So we we are self-aware life that operates right at the core bottom line fabric of the entire universe. That had to
Let
happen.
me just say, I just want to make sure I understood what you said, and I know I did, but I just want everyone to hear this. So what you're saying is, and I heard you say this before, that the human race from a higher intelligence was created in order to ultimately neutralize and transform from this other force or whatever that is, and maybe you can go into that and explain that more. But I think that's what the fallen angel kind of narrative or whatever it is. Whatever. Okay, I got you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of analogies through that. But I mean, but absolutely. I mean, you do not truly know a thing until you've lived it. I've had to piece it together in real time. I've made a lot of mistakes, but the thing is, there are no mistakes. It's how you learn and that's a big one with this programming, because again, you can't be wrong. If you have to be someone else other than you are, and you put all of your energy into being that someone, whatever that is, in order to be accepted, blah blah blah. Doctors and lawyers, a lot of them do that because they're trying to be someone who's worthy of love. So it's really hard to let go of this paradigm because you've invested everything into being someone within it. So mistakes are seen as being proof that you aren't right, when really they're doorways to get to a clearer and deeper understanding. There are no mistakes. There's only adjustments in real time to kind of meet the moment. Having a direct experience of the reality of something is the only way to truly know it. Making assumptions about what that's going to look like have a role to a point, but it's when you have to be right that assumption overrides reality. That's the problem. So one of the great assets and this is what had to happen at the time of the Nazarene, and why he told James and the Magdalene to marry. James was his brother, by the way. Why he told James and the Magdalene to marry and have children just before he was executed. That was all going to happen. It was all part of the plan. Was to set up a soul group that could have a fifth dimensional connection to reality that couldn't be broken. And that was enabled because they said yes to the plan, those of the interference. So they were trapped into a scenario that they had to live through in order to come out of the other side. They had to win this or they would be finished. And there were a few aspects that went into that. One of them was the Nazarene taking a concentrated homeopathic dose of the truth of who we are, humans, into our collective unconscious. As a boy, as a young adult, he was taken around the world. It was necessary for his energy to circle the globe, is the way Tom put it. So that energy network, the energy that he put into the planet, and this soul group that God called twin flames, the four, that was set up after they married. That's simply about it, keeping a genetic connection to who we were before the Atlantis destruction event, alive within the human race in a physical form that couldn't be broken, because the Roman Empire was where they were going all out. That was the last part of the plan, the fourth beast, the corporations, the Vatican City being the first corporation, Admiralty law. As soon as they did the first corporation of Admiralty law, corporations, then they became the Catholic Church, which made them fluid. They went from being a physical thing to an ideology, which could be transferred to any empire. That was a strategy.
The technology of thought, basically. Let me ask you real quick, though, in regard to that, just to kind of summation. Part of what you're saying is that the physical twin frequency in the physicality, the ability to actually create that oneness in the density of this fucking thing, right? I mean, is a very real thing. I know a lot of things have been misconnotated and, kind of muddied up and whatever, but there seems to be something to that they're two physical beings of opposite energetic gender, typically the physical, but maybe not, that actually practice what they preach or walk the talk, and there's really something to that in terms of the energetic force that it provides for a greater level of awareness for all of us. Do you get what my question is? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because the human race is a collective consciousness, so that's why what the Nazarene did with the concentrated homeopathic dose works, because fundamentally it's in the collective. It's accessible to every human on the planet. That frequency, the reality, not the religion, the reality. This is why God said of the name Jesus Christ. That is not our name for him. We call him the Nazarene. He had all of the good from us. You made a god of him. That was what the Catholic Church did to separate us from him. So he said that to separate the story they spun around him from the reality that there's baby in bathwater, and that's the big one. Keep the baby. Religion's done a great job of polarizing us. Either you go all in, and you can see what's playing out around the world when you do that. Either you go all in and you throw out love in the process, or you look at what happens when people do that and you throw out religion and you throw God out in the process. Atheism. Some people can match the middle. Well, the twin flame soul group, the fundamental, the power of the twin flame soul group is that they are two things at once. Soulmates, unified, in other words, a masculine and feminine that can harmonize as a soulmate, and complete opposites as mind. So the conditioning that we took in, but our perspective, because remember, the fundamental nature of the mind control system, again, they know the victims become perpetrators, but they also know that the mind, polarity actually is about unity, but they've spun it so that we think polarity is about conflict. So much of the conflict that happens between men and women, a masculine principle, is actually a reflection of the conflict within ourselves. So each twin flame has to go through a process of dealing with that within themselves. So we take on a lot of the problematicness of world around us, just like everybody does. But we have this fifth dimensional connection, which keeps on showing, which would show me the big picture. And then I go back into 3D, and then I would keep doing this right all the way from 18 months old. So that kept me, I kept the conditioning at arm's length whilst I experienced it directly, so that at a certain point I could deal directly with that within myself and get back into balance, find a way to connect with getting my mind and my heart connection into reality working together in a more refined way. I had to go through that first to a certain point before I met my twin flame, or we wouldn't have been able to connect. She also had to do the same thing. Otherwise, we would have repelled each other too much. So there's a role in taking responsibility for yourself first, but then you go to a whole other level when you connect, because her conditioning and my conditioning, the pain of the way what she had to do to cope with the life she had to live, and me as well, it's like we trigger each other. But that's why it works. Instead of seeing the trigger as about, I won't be happy until you're different, we feel all of that and we think all of that and we know better. So we use those experiences to see through ourselves primarily. So the reactionariness that plays out, it plays out, but we know what to do with it. That's the only thing that's missing.
Fucking A, bro. Fucking A. And how can any kind of internal lesser God conscious infrastructure matrix fuck with that? Because it's rooted. It can't, because it's rooted in the sovereignty of the I am soul, in my words. But then you have this, and maybe that was the potential or the objective of the experiment or the experience was, can we create this with a physical aspect of ourselves in this deep density and actually reach the same level of equilibrium and then see what happens? It's almost like colliding an atom or something. I mean, it's like, I don't even know if God, Tom, would know what would come from that, but it would have to be good, because you can't enter that space unless you're in that state, which we might call Trinity, or, whatever you want to call it. Wow.
Yeah.
Powerful. Thank you.
Well, I mean, again, that's what you call a holy trinity. I mean, what is that? Take away religion for a second. We'll look at polarity. We think of it in terms of two parts, but actually there are three. There's the polar opposite and the center point. So when you put the two together, you come back to unity. But you need the two to do that. To have it, the whole point of the universe is for that which is to experience itself as that. So you need a part that doesn't know the full truth, but is of that, is of source. So that's really what happens when we have this sort of masculine, feminine, but it's all one as well. So by seeing ourselves in the other, we come back to the truth of who we are. So that psyop, basically, that we've been subjected to is now breaking down, because the desire for people to know, firstly, that we've all got to a point, so many people got to a point where we know that it's not working, basically. The plan, the way life operates, it's not working. Otherwise, we would be there by now, and it ain't working. In fact, it's getting worse. And that's caused a lot of people to turn around and say, well, hang on a minute. What's going on? In other words, how do you want to frame it? Basically, there's a realization that's happened to a lot of people that there's got to be a better way or another way.
And the convergence of those things in the present actually brings a greater awareness too. Like, I mean, it actually brings the code or whatever, the experience of having gone into that unknown space. You know what I mean? It's like the level of present experiential for all of us right now. For me, it feels like it's coming to a point. I'm not saying it's there. I'm not saying we can keep up with it yet, but it's all coming in so fast. There's like multiple streams while we're functioning as humans, as the human part is falling away, which is really some kind of false control system that we're finally all going, hey, fuck this shit. You can't kill me. There's only one question. Am I going to make it through in this body, or I'll come back and have another one? I don't know. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that the
Yeah,
real code comes through these individual retellings, and now, as you and your partner can introduce this the couple, and then it's where two more gather. I mean, it's like under the radar. It's like guerrilla spiritual warfare, or guerrilla cosmic warfare, or something. But it's really not even that. It's not introducing anything. It's really just uncovering what's always been there at the baseline anyway, right?
exactly, exactly. And by us experiencing what was covering it, it can't happen again. Once we see through the illusion, which was based on assumptions, we see the reality of what we've lived through. Now that's a tricky thing to do because it means facing the pain and it means facing what we've been doing to each other. This is what Tom called the bottlenecking of souls, karmic thing. The reason people have to keep on reincarnating is because of we act out in ways that follow the plan they want us to follow, which means we create a karmic debt. We've got to come back and repay it. And again, that's not really how life works. You're not meant to do that. But it was done to keep us in a holding pattern while they figured out how to make the transition with us. They were trapped into this scenario. They had to figure out how to use our light space vehicle, the body mind, to make this transition process in order to stay in one piece. But we are way, 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 way too powerful. And the way God put it, you insist you have a human nature. But again, we have to see through the story to the truth. We can't go around it. And again, the way Ramana Maharshi put it, true north, as the Arcturians describe Ramana Maharshi's gift to the world, self-inquiry. He said the only way to know fear is to let it come. If the only way to know fear isn't real is to let it come and get you, which means feeling it and seeing through it. And once you do that, it can never happen again. And that's again what the human race is all about. Uh, all eyes are on Earth, I was told, not just this galaxy. I mean, the entire universe is all watching what's happening here because it's having an impact on the fabric of the universe, how dark and light interact, getting balance back into the fabric of the universe, which of course affects everything. So that imbalance, it was creating a wobble, if you like, an imbalance, just like the wobble on the Earth's axis. That's the interference. It was creating a distortion in time and space that was affecting the entire universe. So something had to be done about it, which has never been done before. And here we are doing it.
That's
We're
why.
the first race.
To me, that's why. Even the fear. I'll use that word. The fear, or the concept of a tsunami coming up at this beach, or earthquake, or nuke, or meteor, or whatever the case is. That's part of the. I'm not saying that it's not literal. I'm not saying that it's not human. I'm just saying that we're beyond that. If you think of that metaphorically speaking, like what you said, where essentially, where if the name of the game or the vehicle or navigation system for going forward is really through fear in this time and space. I mean, it's like it's like we're in a space where it's not up to us. They're all coming at us. They're coming for the bad players, for the 1%, for the Illuminati, for each and every one of us. They're coming, and it's not, there's no favoritism here.
No,
And I feel like, I don't know I don't know what your thoughts are, but it feels like that to me. It feels like if it will get as physical as it has to in order for us, like you said. What did you say earlier about the Arcturians? You can either go, kind of like try to find the flow or resist it, something like that early in the show. But yeah, it's like this is inevitable. It feels inevitable.
yeah, well, there's a series of, that's the thing about free will. Once a civilization chooses a trajectory, it has to be allowed to experience that trajectory. What those of the interference were trying to do is to get us to choose by free will, to choose their plan, to choose slavery, so that we could, because once we did that, it couldn't be reversed. No one could help us. That's why everything they've done since the Roman Empire has been so incremental and so hidden from view. They have to bring each stage in very strategically and very carefully, normalize it, rewrite the history around it. As Napoleon, who was one of the worst of the cabal, said, the victor writes the history, shot the nose off the Sphinx, which is a symbol for erasing their, someone from history, erasing them. Yeah, so that's what they've been doing, and that's stepped up a lot at the turn of the 1900s. So the 20th century onwards was a massive process of steering us to the point where what's playing out now, they were trying to get us to choose. And you can see that with digital ID, which won't work. It's not going to work. It's just showing them up for who they are. Um, all of the surveillance technology, etc. It's again the frequency technology that they're using, the motive behind it. Well, we chose to wake up. We reached critical mass to make the transition back to the truth of who we are in '97, and so they have to honour that. They can't go back. There's nothing they can do to stop it, and
So
everything
would
they've
you
been doing.
so would you say that just to keep it plain, like that the level or the band of frequencies or the level of intelligence that we as a collective are coming into is just totally going to override this system that's been in since the Roman Empire? Like, in other words, it's like a fly on an elephant's ass when we get right down to it. It's here, but it's not going to be here long because we're coming on board. Would you say something like that? I don't mean to ask a leading question.
It's just coming out into the open to be seen, and once it's seen, it's seen for what it really is, and it's never been seen before. But the critical part is understanding that the flow of information has been controlled to steer our perception of reality. Everyone on the planet has to see that. Now, I'm talking to the converted already. There's just a series of catalysts coming that will bring that to everybody. A series of events that will bring in the reality that is the reality to everyone on the planet. But for all of us that have already been asking the questions, it's really those catalysts that bring it together. Oh, I get it. It's like the click, click, click process, the epiphanies that happen that put all. Think of it this way: you've been holding a question with an answer that's too big for your perspective to come into yet. It's a paradigm shift fundamentally. What that does is rearrange your subconscious. It's like getting a jigsaw puzzle, the subconscious layer that was deliberately put together, all the pieces were mismatched so that the foundation that came out of that, the consciousness, couldn't make sense, couldn't work properly. The first thing to do is to get the subconscious layer rearranged so that there are all the right spaces. So, in other words, you've been holding a question and you've been taken through a process which quite often has felt like the opposite to what you thought it should be. That's been hard emotionally. You've been held in gaps, that have been releasing a lot of subconscious energy that feels like you're getting nowhere, Groundhog Day. That's not actually what's been happening. You've been moved through a very deliberate, precisely timed process so that now you've got truth-shaped gaps in your subconscious that these catalyst events will go click and pull all these pieces together. You'll start to see, wow, and you'll look back on the process you've got. This is a really big one. You'll start to look back on, that's why I had to be thrown out of that house. That's why my marriage had to fall apart. Oh my God, that's why that job had to end. I thought it was life throwing me under the bus, but it was actually life helping me.
Let me ask you these two questions. One, first of all, maybe it's a statement. You can say yes or no, or maybe it's close. What you're describing is a very, very individual and personal thing at the most seated level, right? Okay. And the second one I would say is, as I'm listening to you, taking it all in this last hour plus, any narrative that's on the external, worldwide, be it Trump, be it, you mentioned some things earlier in the show or all that stuff, is part of what we're letting go of. Because involved with that is a need to be right, so to speak.
Yeah.
There is an egoic part of it. And it could be something that's coming from the self-perception that I am a light worker, I'm a star seed, and I've had these connections, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line, it's not playing out there. What plays out in here is what plays out there. And so there's really no reason to look at what's out there anymore. And it's getting weird because as you bring in this code, as it comes through, as energetically it's alluded, like say for instance your own journey and you and your partner, it's something it's something innate, instinctive, natural. And I guess there's been through the programming and conditioning a fear to embrace it, and the only way to embrace it is to do it in the flesh, which is wild. And I think that's why you were making that comment earlier about they they're watching us, right? Like, how the hell can you be doing this? How far are you going to go, kind of thing. But that's a powerful thing to consider when not only, we consider the things about ourselves that are different, like you were saying, and then you kind of get to a point where there's going to be this, 100th monkey thing where people go, oh my God, we're all subjected to the same thing. Oh my God, we don't have any prejudices. We don't have any biases. We don't have any revenge in our field or all that stuff. But at the same time, who are these beings that entered these vessels, so to speak, that actually came through the fire in this moment and went through the pure human experience to get to the other side? Like, there's something about that just feels primordial, almost like a rebirth. Like I don't know if you've ever had this experience. I know I have, and I'm sure others have, where you literally, you just had it, didn't you? I'm dying.
Many times.
I'm dying right now. I'm not coming back into the consciousness I was in. And then you come out the other side, and you're in the same space exponentially from the internal. And the whole thing becomes something that is speaking to you at a greater extent. And this is kind of the intelligence I feel like that we're coming into. It's crazy. It's wild. And it's only the 13th of January.
Yeah, 13. 13 is an important number, by the way. That's ego death. But see, this is the importance of getting a handle on the analogy of the one that fell, as God calls him. He said, we do not wish to use his name because it just makes darkness is an absence of light. He said darkness serves a purpose. There's an absence of this moment so that you can experience God, in other words, eternal, because that personality is separate. You come into a light space vehicle called, in my case, Gareth Jenkins, to have an experience as a soul. You aren't this. This isn't who you are. You're the soul that animates it. Once the experience has had its time, you exit this vehicle and you move into another one. That's really all it is. But the ego that controls is the problem God described. What is the main problem facing the human race? The ego that controls and lack of a belief in an absolute reality, that you aren't the ego. So what happens when you learn to doubt yourself at such a young age? You begin to form a false persona around that misconception that you aren't worthy as you are. And that gets more and more pronounced. Two things happen. That gets more and more pronounced, but also the truth of who you are is shunted to the side. So there's almost no reference point. You don't know who you would be if you weren't centered around self-doubt. Well, what does that look like? So you're trying to use willpower to stay the same and change. But that false persona was never true. So the only way to know that is to be brought step by step through a process of ego death where there's less and less of you invested in that false persona and more of a gap, so that you can start to connect to the reality of life moving you. The same process that pulls your ego apart is also bringing new experiences that have all the information you need to connect to who you are without that process. It just takes time to put the dots together. And that clears out all the emotional energy that you've been suppressing and holding back. So that's a difficult process to go through, and it's not one you can really do on your own. And that's what my experience has been. I had to ask for help directly and then live that help in each moment and then be shown why it was the help later, but trust that that was the help as I went into it. And that's why the power of having those 5D experiences was so powerful. And that's why this soul group had to have them, because of when we had to go through this. Basically, everything the human race is going through now, we had to go through it before it happened, so that we could sit here and say this is what's going on.
Mm.
It's not what it looks like.
Would you say
And
that? Would you say that another way to put it would be we're given the revelation or epiphany of a greater awareness of who we really are, what we really are, and that in order to in order to embody that, we come to a point where we lose the judgment of ourselves in the sense that we couldn't see it. So,
yeah,
in other words, we
self
accept the
self
fool,
judgment.
like we accept the fool to receive the hero, or a greater version of ourselves, something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've got to look at your own flaws and faults and allow them to exist in order to see through them and they were never true. It's a bit of a mind fuck. The only way to know that it was never true is to feel them. So the humiliation you went through as a child, all the things you've been trying to do to get away from those feelings, it's like this transition process is going to keep putting you back in them and adjust your point of view so that you can see through them. So the only way to experience that it was never true is to be in those experiences long enough to see past them. You kind of get over it after a while.
That's what
You
I'm
know,
saying. Would you say
yeah,
that, in other words, what you're saying is, for instance, at the human level, right, at the layman level, if I have feelings or frequencies of, let's say, envy, jealousy, or something of anger, something of that nature, if I allow those to be here with me, then they are acknowledged fully or whatever, then they start to lose the illusionary influence and power they had over me. They just become
it's
part of the
not. Yeah,
palette I paint with, and they become really an experience of contrast that I learn from. But they don't carry the weight they used to. I guess maybe another way to say it is what they talk about: if you resist, it will persist. I mean, at some point,
exactly.
we come into a place where the universe is saying you're going to sit with everything because everything is everything, and you are part of everything.
That's what Ramana was saying. That meet the feeling and let the story be there, and question the story. In other words, the only way to when you meet someone, that's how you get to know them. So we've been running from this feeling called whatever you want to call it, and we can define it in lots of different ways without ever looking at it. What is it really? So that's the whole thing with satsang, and why Ramana Maharshi was brought in when he did as a conduit for satsang, which is the path of self-inquiry, in the form that it came through. Because if you were with the Nazarene, that's precisely what you would be brought through. The path of self-inquiry, the way Ramana brought it in, is what you would have,
When did
what the
he come in?
Nazarene would have.
When did he come in?
He was born in the late 1800s, I believe, and he saw his father dead. I think that had just happened. His dad's eyes. His father. This is he was in India. He was 14. His father had just died, and he saw the eyes were open, but the light was gone. And because he was very young, he kind of thought, "What are we then? Are we this, or are we that light?" And he held it, and bang, woke up. And he went through the illusion of being a 14-year-old schoolboy for about a week, and that went, and he just took off, went to a place called Mount Arunachala in India, and just sat there in silence, staring. And goat herders found him, pushed food into his mouth. They knew what was happening. He was awake, and he would just basically sit there in silence and stare at you. And all these people started to wake up. So he began speaking. There were transmissions going on all the time, and this whole body of work came out, which we call satsang. And there was a sage that came from him called Papaji, who was an Indian sniper, highly traumatized. Heard about this guy, went and sat with him until he woke up. Then an American woman called Antoinette Varner heard about him, about Papaji, went and sat with him until she woke up. She became the voice to the West. So this whole lineage sort of popped up in order for that to be around right now. And that played out precisely at that time, because that was when those of the interference were about to make their big move. healthcare system, the financial system, centralization, Titanic wipeout, the people against centralization of financial system, la-di-da-di-da.
Yeah,
World War
like all
One.
around the 19 teens, right? Last century in
Yeah,
the teens, yeah.
that's right. So it was a critical time in history, and this is what's happened the whole time. Always the light comes in and threads itself through the narrative, so that there's always this counter move going on, back and forth, ready to come out at this time. And that's precisely what's happened. So again, the ego death is what basically the exposure of the controlled narrative through COVID, the lie of COVID does, and it
So,
rewrites our entire history.
so okay, so like I've heard you and others talk about like the connection between, let's just say, the more benevolent influences in their physicality or non-physicality or higher intelligence with those we might call white hats, which also tells us there's the opposite, which we all know. But
Right.
really, I think from what I gained from you and talking with you and sitting with you, that ultimately those are still part of the narrative. The bottom line is that what you're speaking of with that individual and his life, sitting in the silence and the effectiveness of his silence, and how it, from a frequency perspective, it enlightened people just in their presence. And we've heard stories about this, like with Amma and others. But the bottom line being, it's still happening in here, regardless of the stories out here. As long as we look for, let's just say, the black hats, the white hats, whatever that case may be, it's a part of us that has to be right. It's a part of us that can't go beyond that field, those boundaries, because really what is a fear within us that's been created by this particular experience, and maybe it goes back further, whatever the case is. But the bottom line is, we really have to challenge our belief systems, especially when they involve an external influence. It doesn't mean we're losing anything. It just means that the same answer applies to every question, every quagmire, ultimately every dark night of the soul. It's me and the universe, I guess, in a way, right? And that's what we're coming to as a collective.
Well, yeah, because so many people have done it effectively. Now, what basically happens when you, let's say, I call it hitting the wall. You hit the wall, plan A, this paradigm doesn't work. You hit the wall, you're done. You ask the question, what's the truth? Now, what happens is you lose yourself to that question. You'll lose everything to that question. You'll lose who you are to that question, and that triggers the entire problem. But we aren't who we think we are. And that motivation to create that self was always the problem. So that's why you've got to lose yourself to it. So you're going to ask the question, you won't get an answer straight away. What will happen, though, is you'll be taken through a series of experiences that look a lot like all the other experiences. But what's shifted is your perspective. You're willing now to see something you wouldn't in those exact experiences that you weren't willing to see before, which is the truth. Because you couldn't let that in and be the self that's protecting you from the fear at the same time. But what happens when you hit the wall? Well, you're over it. What are you over? The problem. What's the problem? The sense of self-doubt. The only way to get clear that you are guided by reality, life, and you have what it takes to meet that guidance is to go through a process long enough where that becomes a direct experience, which means you're going to be held in that process feeling the exact opposite for as long as it takes. And there's no formula. Well, now we've reached a point where the entire human race is going through that process regardless of what you think about anything. That's exactly what's playing out over the next couple of years. The collapse of the control narrative.
So the loops, the loops that we've had, I love the way you explain that, because I'm reliving something in my head 2 and 3 times. It comes back again and again. But yeah, that feels, I mean, I'm just trying to take that in. An entire humanity, planetary wide, to be going to the point that we've all gone through more than once, to go, oh, this is a loop that doesn't have to be a loop. We can go on a spiral. Now, I'm not even saying humanity gets to that point, just realizing to the point where, which is what we talked about earlier, that these things that are happening over and over, and you're just like going, wait a minute, man. No,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this anymore. Right? Like, I mean,
Yes.
it gets to the point where I guess in a metaphoric sense, you would say, I'd rather die, or I'm willing
Mm,
to risk physical death, or I'm just not going to do this because
mm.
it just hurts my soul, basically.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. And
it's
you
time for
can,
the bullshit to be over, and but it's that point where the mind and the heart meet, the soul, whatever, and says no more. I don't give a shit how good this movie's been. I don't care what's been going on. It doesn't matter. I'll let bygones be bygones. Let's make let's make some hay while the sun's shining, kind of thing. Like, it feels like they talk about with the 26,000 years and all that. It feels like we literally are being jettisoned into a new dimension at a very physical level.
yeah, well, we're coming back to the full five-dimensional reality of who we are. And the thing that does it is being willing not to know. Now, a lot of us were already, see, we had the will, this is what Tom's meant by it's better for you if you choose it. We were willing to admit we didn't know, dot, dot, dot. We didn't even know what we didn't know. We just knew we didn't know. We weren't certain of anything anymore. We weren't certain of ourselves. And that brings up uncertainty, but we have to go there. Whereas a lot of people reacted the other way. They have to know. They locked right in. And their ability to do that, the rug's going to get pulled out from under them. So that's what does it, the willingness not to know. So being confronted with the reality that you don't know what reality is by the fact that reality that you thought was reality just collapsed is the delivery vehicle. That's why the Arcturians call it the great falling apart for that half. Everything is going to fall apart. For us, that's the best thing that could happen because what's falling apart, we know, is the inversion of reality. It's the problem. What's falling apart is the system of slavery, the financial system, the la-di-da-di-da. It just looks like chaos because that's change. But we're not afraid of change anymore because we've gone through it so much. We've been held in it so much. Change is the universal constant. No form stays the same. But the energy that all form comes from never changes. The sum total energy of the universe is it always stays the same, but the form it takes never stops changing. That's how life is. So you can see the problem with self-doubt and fear of the unknown. You're going in the opposite direction to the way energy moves in the universe.
That's
So it gets
funny.
more and more intense. Yeah.
That's crazy how they could create the inverse to be the reality. In other words, if you think about it, the deconstruction of the finance and this, that, and the other thing, the things that we know, at least, that we have some kind of idea of what they are, the fear of them going away.
Yeah, because
like we're actually holding this thing in place because, wait a minute now, leave that there, even though they're assholes, whatever the case is. But
yeah,
but yeah,
better the devil you know.
I wanted to ask you before we get out of here. I mean, I guess, there's code that comes through everything, and this has been fantastic, 90 minutes. I knew it would be big, and I know it's going to probably marinate in me for a few days. Thank you so much for showing up tonight and all together. But how are you doing? You've been through, I mean, there's a lot going on. Obviously, as the individual goes, so goes the collective, but you've been like on point here as we came into this new Gregorian calendar year. I get that. But still, there's some symmetry, there's some synchronicity, there's some sequentiality that's occurred that involves you and other people. And I think this is part of the recognition that we're coming into and the connectivity. But because it's such a human thing and our multidimensionality, and to me, that's where the real code is. How are you feeling physically? How are you doing emotionally, mentally? Have you taken a breath? What's going on? I mean, as much as you want to tell, are you okay? I mean, you're doing the work. You're a warrior. We know this about you. We know you're stepping up, and I'm very, very honored and privileged to be a part of it, both you and Katie. But how are you doing, man? Are you good? Are you feeling all right? How do you feel about now and what's coming?
Yeah, I mean, look, what I went through with this whole five hours of grand mal seizures is a lot. I can tell you, and being in a coma and all of that, absolutely. But I've been through stuff like that all my life in one form or another. So it's not, I've learned to roll with it. So yeah, there's a bit of, I'm going through some therapy just to get my body to work again. I lost a lot of kind of atrophied, etc. But that to me is just the details of the path. But what I've come out of it with is such a power. I mean, it's all coming together. It's so powerful. I'm really, really happy with where we're at. It's all coming together. Everything that we've been working for, not just in our lifetime, and we're talking about this plan's been going for so long. I mean, you think about Atlantis was put together. There was a civilization on Mars that was put together that was destroyed. That led to the civilization Atlantis on Earth. All part of the process. I mean, this plan's been going for a very, very, very long time, and it's all coming together right now. So I feel very happy about it, very positive. Everything you're seeing playing out is just the collapse of what has to go. Everything that needs to replace it is all sitting there waiting to go. The Galactic Federation of Worlds is ready right now. That integration process of that going public is going to play out in a series of probably about 3 or 4 phases. The first one will be secret, but it's going from just top secret with military to bringing in a certain number of elements from the street level. The pincer move, that had to happen. So that's about to play out. The financial system that replaces this one is ready to go. So, yes, it's going to collapse, but what's going to replace it is all ready to rock. So don't worry about anything. It's the best thing that's ever happened to this civilization in 24,000 years.
Let me, I just somehow or another this appeared on my computer. It downloaded something and rebooted and it popped up. But this is actually the transmission that I received from the experience that I had with you and Franco, right? These were your words in that dimension. That's only really attributable to me. I'm not saying that it works for everybody, but I think it's interesting that it just popped up right now. So this was actually 3 days into it. So this would have been probably like when you were on the other side, January 1, my time, 2:33 a.m. This was what I didn't share with Katie. Because what I shared with Katie is what I told you earlier. Like, he's going to be fine. He's got 3 days. He's going to come out on the other side. He's doing the work. But then after that happened, and I was with myself over the next couple of days, the higher elements came in to challenge the belief systems that I had. The same thing that you're talking about. Yeah. So I had to look at that you wouldn't come back, right? And and so that was the space I was in with the in that triad, which really was an octahedron because it was the three of us and then, the Tom, right?
Right.
Gareth is doing great work, fusing what we've called non-physical with the physical. It's his peace. Now he tells me there's no sorrow in expansion, and that whether we are in the physical or not, we are together in a way we will understand fully, regardless of the goings-on, and sooner than later. We're all connected, and that is the bottom line. And the final answer to any narrative, belief, choice, or whatever is presented to us in life. And that is the point. We are here to live, and to live as consciously of our soul as we can, to our best, is the greatest gratitude, love, respect, honor, grace, and newest offering of the universal. And we chose, and we're chosen to bring it through. That's what I got from you, man. Maybe it was my imagination, but I don't think so.
No,
That's
it
just my
sounds quite
opinion.
consistent. Yeah, that sounds quite consistent. Well, I mean, I'll leave you. What I can sum it up with is what's happening on the other side of this. The way God put it, life may return to that which we always intended. So balance, harmony, peace, joy, the way life is always meant to be. And the Arcturians showed me this little transition period. They showed me on the other side, Galactic Federation integrating with us. Remember, the way God put it, why are they alien? We say to you, they are your brothers and sisters, quite literally family. So our family's about to go bang. Our understanding is about to grow exponentially. Then all of our creative power stops going into disconnection. And they showed me the paradigm shift that represents is an explosion of color and light. They said the renaissance that's coming is It was mind blowing, mind blowing. You think of everything. You take away all the obstacles, financial. Stop fighting for. You don't have to fight for survival anymore. You can actually come back to balance and peace. Everything that we need to do to come back, healing physically, mentally, emotionally, getting clear on what's really been happening all the time, finally being able to see and hear each other, then civilization can come back into balance and be an expression of the divine order that it was always meant to be. So the creative explosion that's coming is absolutely mind blowing, and it'll be worth every second. And you'll understand that. That's the key. You'll look back and see every moment you lived through. And this is something the Arcturians showed me. They showed me what they called the life review that's coming for everybody on the other side of this little process we're going through now. Because of the technology to take away the biological warfare that shuts the brain down, you'll have your mental clarity and memory will come back to a massive pinpoint accuracy. So you'll be able to look back in your memory at all the experiences you've gone through pretty much from year dot and see the line of continuity of all of them and realize how every single one of the experiences that you went through was precisely engineered to get you to the point where you could see the truth fully and be free once and for all. They said gratitude will dissolve pain. Bang. That's what's coming now. All physical form has to conform to that reality.
Wow.
Full stop, end of story.
It's like you can look back and see all the alternate timelines that your mind let you run off on, and then you come back and look at it and you see that you see that common denominator, and I feel you, brother. I mean, like, gratitude is, you can't fake it, and that's to be able to look back at any of our lives from the perspective we have right in this moment and really be 100% in gratitude, like, that's the space we're entering. I mean, think of the other side of that. Like, think of the things that would turn on because of that, the things that were not turned on because of the things that wouldn't allow us to really feel that because of that judgment. It's such a trip to me because the multidimensionality through, like, experiences like your life and different people I've talked to, and, just different experiences we have dimensionally and with other intelligences and frequencies, but yet it's this very human level, the most base level, that carries the highest code. Like tonight, like this 90 minutes has been, it's been enormous, and it's not based on views or likes or anything. It's not. We're talking energy, man. We're talking truth, frequency. We're talking courage. Like, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm finding myself collaborating with people over the last 2 or 3 months, are these people that are actually saying things that haven't been said in this forum. They've been said or talked about, or certain topics in the form of disclosure or conspiracy, but not where you're involving the soul to the nth degree. And that's what you bring to the table with both your presence and your words and your life and your story and so many other people. And that's what's exciting to me, because it's very contagious. And I'm just honored and privileged to have you here, man. And I'm looking forward to seeing you and Katie next week, man. And blessings of peace, grace, and love to you and your family. And thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Todd. See you next week. See you, Katie, next week.
All right, brother. Take care.